The truth about Miguel's next move is hidden in plain sight. And episode 4 finally exposes just how far he's willing to go to destroy Tommy. What looks like a simple power play is actually the start of a much bigger trap, one that Tommy doesn't even see coming. And once you understand Miguel's mindset in this episode, you'll realize he was never trying to fight Tommy head-on. He's planning to bury him without firing a single shot. Miguel has always been dangerous, but in Season 3, Episode 4, something shifts inside him. It's not just about protecting his business anymore. It's not even about revenge for small losses. This episode makes it clear that Miguel finally understands the real threat Tommy poses. Tommy isn't another rival dealer trying to break into the market. He's someone who changes the balance of power wherever he goes. And that scares Miguel more than anything. For Miguel, control is everything. He runs his world through fear, loyalty, and careful planning. But with Tommy rising so fast in Chicago, Miguel sees cracks beginning to form in his system. People talk about Tommy's moves. They respect him. Some even fear him. And this is the one thing Miguel cannot tolerate: another man gaining influence in a city Miguel wants for himself. Episode 4 stresses this shift through the small moments. How Miguel watches Tommy's alliances grow, how he listens to whispers that Tommy has become a problem impossible to ignore. Every expression, every look, every pause reveals Miguel's fear turning into determination. But here's the key. Miguel knows killing Tommy outright will start a war he cannot control. Too many people have ties to Tommy. Too many crews rely on him. Turning the city against Tommy without getting his own hands dirty is a cleaner, smarter plan. It's cold, calculated, and exactly the style Miguel prefers. And Episode 4 hints at this mindset through his conversations and his silence. Sometimes what Miguel doesn't say is louder than what he speaks underneath it all. Miguel feels the pressure from his own people too. His family questions his decisions. His partners wonder if he's slipping. The cartel expects order, not chaos. Every second Tommy stays alive, Miguel feels his power slipping away. So instead of striking directly, Miguel begins to build a story, one where Tommy becomes the villain, the traitor, the threat that every other crew will want to eliminate. This is where Miguel's plan starts to take shape, not with a gun, but with an idea. In Episode 4, Miguel studies Tommy the way a hunter studies its prey. He watches who Tommy meets, where he goes, and how others react to him. The more Tommy rises, the more Miguel feels he has no choice but to act. And because Miguel believes himself to be smarter than everyone around him, he chooses a path that suits his ego, a setup that destroys Tommy's reputation, his alliances, and his sense of control. Miguel wants Tommy to fall in a way that makes him look weak, exposed, and isolated. This is why Episode 4 is so important. It marks the exact moment Miguel stops thinking about Tommy as a rival and starts treating him like a target. Every small decision Miguel makes in this episode lays the foundation for a trap only he can see. And what makes it even darker is how patient Miguel becomes. He doesn't rush. He doesn't lash out. Instead, he slowly tightens the noose around Tommy, waiting for the perfect moment to pull. By the time Episode 4 ends, one thing becomes painfully clear. Miguel isn't planning a fight, he's planning a setup. A setup that will make Tommy look like the source of every problem in Chicago. A setup that turns allies into enemies. A setup that makes Tommy look guilty before he even realizes what's happening. And in Miguel's mind, this is the only way to win. Not by force, but by making Tommy's world collapse from the inside. Miguel's plan in Episode 4 doesn't come from one big moment. It comes from a series of small clues that seem harmless on their own, but together they reveal the true danger Tommy is walking into. Miguel moves like someone who has already accepted that the only way to win is to reshape the entire board. And Episode 4 gives us the hints piece by piece, showing exactly how Miguel prepares the trap long before anyone notices. The first major clue appears in the way Miguel controls information. He stops reacting to Tommy's moves emotionally and instead starts gathering details quietly, letting others talk while he listens. This silence is not weakness. It's calculation. Miguel watches how the CBI is shifting, how Diamond is dealing with pressure, and how Tommy's name is spreading through the streets. Every conversation Miguel overhears gives him a clearer picture of how to twist the narrative later. He's not trying to understand Tommy. He's looking for the perfect angle to destroy him. Then there's the way Miguel begins testing loyalty. In episode 4, he pushes people around him into uncomfortable situations not to punish them, but to see who hesitates. Anyone who pauses, anyone who questions him, anyone who shows even a hint of doubt becomes a potential pawn in his setup. Miguel isn't just fighting Tommy. He's cleansing his own circle to make sure nothing gets in the way of his plan. This is how he stays one step ahead. Miguel believes betrayal is always possible, so he manufactures pressure to expose it early. Another important clue is how Miguel starts adjusting his operations without announcing it. Routes change. Deliveries shift. Meetings move to new locations. At first, these changes look like random decisions, but episode 4 makes it clear there's a pattern. Miguel is repositioning his empire so that when he finally pushes the blame onto Tommy, everyone will already be looking in Tommy's direction. It's genius in a twisted way. Miguel creates small disturbances and lets the streets connect the dots for him. But the biggest clue of all comes from the way Miguel uses fear, not direct threats, but controlled pressure. He doesn't blow up on his crew. He doesn't make dramatic speeches. Instead, he plants ideas. He lets rumors spread. He lets people think danger is coming from Tommy's side. And once fear begins to grow, Miguel gently guides it, pushing it toward his desired target. By the time the rumors mature, people won't remember where they started. And that's exactly how Miguel wants it. Episode 4 also gives us moments where Miguel manipulates tension between other crews without ever stepping forward. He lets rival groups assume Tommy is making moves he isn't. He allows misinformation to drift through the city like smoke, clouding everyone's judgment. Miguel understands something most leaders forget. Controlling perception is more powerful than controlling territory. If he can make the right people believe Tommy is the reason things are falling apart, then Miguel doesn't have to fire a single shot. The streets will do the work for him. There's also the strategic timing of Miguel's actions. He picks moments when Tommy is busy handling chaos elsewhere. Miguel knows Tommy is stretched thin dealing with CBI problems, building new alliances, managing his product, and handling personal conflicts. Episode 4 shows Miguel studying Tommy's distractions and steering his plan around them. He chooses moments when Tommy is least able to defend himself, making the frame-up feel even more believable. Every scene involving Miguel in episode 4 carries a quiet tension, like he's biting down on a secret he can't wait to reveal. His calm is unsettling. His patience is chilling. And these small details become the foundation of a setup that feels invisible until it is too late. Miguel isn't planning to hit Tommy where he is strong. He's planning to hit Tommy where he is blind. By the end of episode 4, the clues form a clear message. Miguel isn't preparing for a fight, he's preparing for a story. A story where Tommy becomes the villain, the traitor, and the threat that needs to be eliminated. Every shift Miguel makes, every lie he lets spread, and every silent decision is part of that story. And once the city believes it, Tommy won't be able to undo the damage. No matter how powerful he becomes, Miguel's entire strategy in episode 4 becomes clearer once you see how he builds his trap layer by layer. Like someone designing a fall that looks natural. Nothing he does is random. Nothing he does is rushed. Every move is slow, steady, and aimed at pushing Tommy into a corner without him noticing. Miguel doesn't want to just beat Tommy, he wants to make sure the world believes Tommy destroyed himself. This section of the episode shows how Miguel uses deception, pressure, and timing to turn Chicago into a stage for Tommy's downfall. The first part of Miguel's trap is misdirection. He knows Tommy is smart and always watching, so Miguel gives him something to focus on: false targets and staged problems that look important but mean nothing. Instead of hitting Tommy directly, Miguel starts creating small disturbances around him. A messy shipment here. A suspicious conversation there. A shady meeting that looks like a threat but is actually a distraction. Each piece is designed to keep Tommy's attention drifting in the wrong direction. Miguel wants Tommy chasing shadows while the real danger grows behind his back. Next, Miguel attacks Tommy's alliances without touching them himself. Episode 4 shows him planting seeds of doubt with surgical precision. He whispers small lies into the right ears, not loud enough to spark a war but quiet enough to start suspicion. He uses old grudges, hidden frustrations, and private fears to make Tommy look unreliable. Miguel knows that Tommy's strength comes from the loyalty of the people around him. So he starts to weaken that loyalty one person at a time. A delayed payment becomes a rumor. A canceled meeting becomes a warning sign. A street conflict becomes a whispered question. Is Tommy losing control? And Miguel lets those questions spread. Like a virus. Another powerful part of Miguel's trap is how he manipulates the streets without leaving fingerprints. He uses middlemen, outsiders, and unknown faces to push tension in the directions he wants. Some push drugs with Tommy's name on them when they shouldn't. Others stir up trouble while pretending to be connected to Tommy's crew. These small actions create confusion, and confusion creates fear. Fear leads crews to blame the most visible person, the rising threat, the outsider, the man who doesn't belong. And at this moment, that man is Tommy. Miguel knows that reputation is fragile. And once doubt enters a crew's mind, it spreads fast and hits hard. Episode 4 also reveals how Miguel weaponizes law enforcement without needing direct contact. He lets bits of information accidentally fall into the wrong hands. A location, a name, a product sample. Not enough to link back to him, but enough to make the police start circling in Tommy's direction. Miguel understands how to use pressure points in the city. Once cops begin sniffing around Tommy's operation, every other crew automatically steps back, worried about exposure. This pushes Tommy into isolation, making him easier to frame. Miguel doesn't need to call in a raid, he just needs to point the danger toward Tommy and let the system do the rest. Then comes the emotional trap. Miguel knows Tommy isn't driven by fear, he's driven by loyalty and revenge. So he creates situations where Tommy feels he must respond. Maybe a trusted ally gets threatened. Maybe someone close to Tommy is hurt. Maybe a deal collapses in a way that feels personal. Miguel manipulates these moments so Tommy reacts quickly, not strategically. The more emotional Tommy becomes, the easier he is to predict. And predictable enemies are the easiest to destroy. The most chilling part of Miguel's trap is how invisible it is. Episode 4 shows him blending into the background, moving like someone who knows the outcome long before it arrives. He never shouts. He never panics. He never shows urgency. This calmness creates a false sense of security around him. People around him assume he's focused on his own business, when in reality he's shaping Tommy's future with every quiet decision. Miguel moves like a ghost, but his impact is loud. As the trap closes, Episode 4 reveals that Miguel doesn't just want Tommy gone, he wants Tommy blamed. He wants the streets to say Tommy caused the chaos. He wants the cops to believe Tommy is the center of the drug war. He wants every ally to think Tommy is a threat, not an asset. And once that narrative becomes strong enough, Miguel can finish the job without ever pulling the trigger. The city will do it for him. By the end of this setup phase, Miguel has already built the cage. Tommy just hasn't realized he's inside it yet. The timing, the lies, the fear, the pressure, it all connects. Episode 4 shows that Miguel is not preparing for a battle. He's preparing for a fall. And he's making sure Tommy never sees the ground coming. Miguel's trap in Episode 4 isn't just a setup, it's the opening move of a larger plan meant to reshape the entire power structure of Chicago. Everything Miguel does leads to one final objective, turning the entire city against Tommy before Tommy even understands he's being targeted. What makes this final part of the episode so powerful is how quietly Miguel moves. He doesn't attack with noise. He attacks with certainty. And the closer we get to the end of the episode, the more obvious it becomes that Miguel is already thinking 10 steps ahead. Preparing a hit that doesn't look like a hit, Miguel's endgame begins with his understanding of perception. He knows Tommy has built a reputation of strength, fearlessness, and rising power, and that's exactly what Miguel intends to twist. He wants people to see Tommy not as a leader, but as a reckless force who's putting everyone at risk. In episode 4, Miguel begins shaping this perception by causing problems that look like Tommy's mistakes. The wrong product gets into the wrong hands. Deals get messed up with Tommy's name attached. Small fires start popping up across the city. And every flame points toward Tommy. Miguel doesn't need to tell anyone what to. Think he just gives them a story they're willing to believe. But Miguel's endgame becomes even clearer when he starts using timing like a weapon. He waits for the moment when Tommy is already overwhelmed. Tommy is juggling issues with CBI, dealing with pressure from the Serbs, and trying to protect those around him. Miguel sees the cracks forming and pushes at them gently, making Tommy feel cornered by problems he didn't create. This is Miguel's brilliance. He makes Tommy fight battles he shouldn't have to fight. And while Tommy is busy putting out fires, Miguel is quietly building the final step of his trap. Episode 4 also uses character interactions to show Miguel's confidence. Whenever he speaks, his words carry a double meaning. When he's silent, the silence feels like a warning. He doesn't move like a man scrambling for survival, he moves like someone who already knows he's won. Miguel's calm is the strongest indicator of his endgame because only someone who feels complete control can stay this steady. His confidence isn't arrogance. It's the result of knowing that every move he's made has pushed Tommy closer to a fall that looks self-inflicted. Then comes the emotional strike, perhaps the most dangerous part of Miguel's endgame. He doesn't just want to break Tommy's reputation. He wants to break Tommy's sense of security. Miguel knows Tommy relies on instinct and strength, so he creates situations that make Tommy doubt both. People start acting differently around Tommy. Allies hesitate. Deals slow down. Whispers start following him like shadows. Miguel ensures that Tommy begins to feel something he never allows himself to feel: uncertainty. Once that uncertainty takes root, Miguel knows Tommy will make mistakes that help the trap close even tighter. And just when Tommy thinks he's gaining control again. Episode 4 shows the final twist: Miguel using the city itself as a weapon. The police, rival crews, and street gossip all start forming one giant wave of pressure. Miguel has set the direction of this wave so perfectly that Tommy becomes the center of every problem. A raid feels like coincidence. A sudden betrayal looks like personal failure. A broken deal looks like Tommy's fault. But behind every one of these moments, Miguel's hand is guiding the outcome. Pushing Tommy toward the edge without ever revealing his own involvement, Miguel's endgame becomes terrifying when you realize he wants the streets to destroy Tommy for him. He doesn't want Tommy's death tied to his name. He wants Tommy to fall because the city turned against him, because his allies pulled away, because the system closed in. Miguel wants the world to believe Tommy caused his own downfall. That way, when Tommy is out of the picture, Miguel walks away looking like a man who simply survived the chaos, not the man who engineered it. The fallout is already visible by the end of episode 4. Tommy doesn't see the full picture yet, but he feels the pressure tightening from all sides. He senses betrayal, confusion, and danger creeping closer. But he hasn't discovered that Miguel is behind it all. That's the beauty and cruelty of Miguel's plan. Tommy is reacting, not predicting. Fighting, not understanding. And Miguel is watching, waiting for the perfect moment to let the final piece fall into place. Episode 4 ends with a chilling reality. The trap is no longer being built, it's already functioning. Miguel has positioned every piece exactly where he needs it. Tommy's world is shifting without him noticing. People around him are changing. The streets are becoming unstable. And whether he realizes it or not, Tommy is stepping deeper into a setup designed to end him. Miguel's endgame isn't explosive, it's precise. And the fallout is only beginning.